Blake Lively lost 10 of her 13 claims against Justin Baldoni. We just read the entire piece. Let's break it down. Welcome to Popcorn Planet. I am Andy Signore. What a day for justice. It ends with justice we always thought it would, and today it's starting to. Kim is here. We were live for the past couple hours, 3 hours. We read all 151 most relevant pages. You can go join and watch the full stream if you want to read through with us over at popcornplanet.com. The full stream will be archived there, but we're going to recap this sort of summary of our takeaway of some of the reveals. We're also going to do a lot more content next day, sort of breaking down some of the big reveals from Liman in this, because I think it's really important. The takeaway, we're still going to trial. Still going to trial in May. A lot of it has been chucked, but a lot of it still holds. The real things that are staying are the retaliation claims against TAG, really, the PR firm. Justin's pretty much out of it. It's Wayfarer, it's the Enzo's movie, but all the individuals are pretty much out. It's really just those entities, the companies that are still up as to who is responsible for the retaliation. And in reading Liman's ruling, which I thought was pretty fair, I got to be honest, he did a pretty good job. In reading it, he's making it clear a lot of those harassment claims were nonsense. He says it. It's pretty glorious to read. But he does say some of them still, and all of them together, could combine to someone who felt uncomfortable. It could fall into that, and that could be part of why it was retaliating. So we will get to hear them fight out those harassment claims as well as the smear campaign in court in May. So, and Blake has already made comments to People Magazine and others that we're going to read for you. She is looking forward to testifying at trial. But needless to say, this is a massive L for Lively. But Kim, it should also be said, as Lively's comments say, and in fact, I'll read them because I want you guys to see what they're reporting here. Sigrid McCauley, who is also coming against me in Florida here against my subpoena. This case has always been about and will remain focused on the devastating retaliation and the extraordinary steps the defendant took to destroy Blake Lively's reputation, because she stood up for safety on the set, and that is the case that is going to trial. The statement continues, for Blake Lively, the greatest measure of justice is that the people in the playbook behind these coordinated digital attacks have been exposed and are already being held accountable by other women they've targeted. They're nodding, I think, to the Rebel Wilson case and others. She looks forward to testifying at trial and continuing to shine a light on this vicious form of online retaliation so that it becomes easier to detect and fight. She added, the SH claims isn't going forward, not because the defendants did nothing wrong, but because the court determined Blake Lively was an independent contractor, not an employee. Now, I want to chime in there. Liman did kind of call out that it wasn't really SH. There's several things that we can go through that he definitely threw a bucket of water on that Lively was claiming was harassment that he makes clear was not. That said, there's a few others that he goes into more detail, saying that it was. Baldoni's lawyers say these were very serious allegations, and we are grateful to the court for its careful review, law and voluminous evidence that it was provided. What's left is significantly narrowed case, and we look forward to presenting our defense to the remaining claims in court. May 18th, we will be there. Kim, before we go through I want to pull out some of these quotes. Overall, what is your takeaway? What is your response to their responses as reading it all? What's your main takeaway?
I think it's not 100% fair to say that, the only reason that the SH claims aren't going forward is because of the independent contractor not being an employee. That absolutely is important. One of the things about this case that a lot of us who have really read the lawsuits understand is so much of this case is about the contracts and is about the agreements that were made and whether or not Blake was an independent contractor or an employee and whether or not an agreement was signed or not and all the things that went along with that. So there were a lot of technicalities through that I think a lot of people had been wondering, like, how are we still here after so long? But ultimately, I don't believe that they decided to do a motion to dismiss. They then decided to go for the motion for judgment on the pleadings and a motion for summary judgment, which is where we are today. And a lot of things that I think a lot of people have suspected were going to get thrown out have absolutely been thrown out. But at the same time, there is dialogue through here from Judge Liman talking about certain claims and saying you can't blame this as SH. You can't claim that this is because of your gender. You can't claim that Justin Baldoni talking about circumcision with you as a mother when they're talking about children, as you had not, I believe she hadn't given birth at the time when they were having that conversation, before she worked for him, is not making a hostile work environment. That's not
Correct.
what it is. And so it's like there's so much of that all through the document. And I think the judge has basically just said if there's anything here that it was like, this could be a debate, it's got to go to trial. It's got to go to trial, and that's what's happening. So I think it'll be interesting to see where we go from here. I don't think the trial is going to be as long as we originally anticipated, but it will be interesting to see. And also, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a settlement, honestly, in my own opinion, because this is going to be an ugly one to have to go through in court for everybody.
Yeah,
so
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because we get a little bit more insight about Liman's stake. And again, as Kim just brought up, the circumcision, he was talking about his genitalia, occurred in the context of discussion about the different medical decisions people make these days, including circumcision for male babies, a topic that Lively herself may have introduced. More importantly, it occurred before she began working on the film. Therefore, it could not have created a hostile work environment. So Liman's calling some of the stuff out. Like, come on. He does admit, though, it's the combination of all these things. Other conduct, particularly viewed in isolation, would not give rise to a claim of hostile work environment. Prior to working filming, certain edits of the film related to SEX that she believed were gratuitous. He suggested scenes that were, suggested, more objectable environments, etc. But it would be neither surprising nor unreasonable from a creative standpoint for both Baldoni and Lively to have drafted these explicit material, even if some of it was not to the taste of the other. Indeed, Angie of Sony had written to Baldoni that Sony was going to try and get as much tasteful, hot X as you can. As the court observed, in context, the actor's playing, he's like, of course this is part of the job. This isn't a hostile work environment that he added more gratuitous scenes because Sony was asking for it. He also really calls out the fat shaming. The complaints of fat shaming could not reasonably support a claim. Shortly before working the film, she gave birth to a child. She expressed to Baldoni that she wanted to be in her best shape. She talked about it. Baldoni asked a personal trainer if he had consulted with, who was working with her, if the trainer knew what she would weigh when filming began. The question then found its way back to Lively, who felt disturbed and unsettled that Baldoni was soliciting information about her weight. On another occasion, Baldoni introduced Lively to a specialist in weight loss or probiotics that also later she learned was a weight loss specialist. Evidence that an employer made weight-related comments to a person of only one gender could in certain circumstances help demonstrate a hostile work environment. Although the record here does not indicate whether any similar conduct was directed towards men, regardless of the conduct, cannot reasonably be viewed as expressing hostility. Lively as a woman or as a woman in general, the physical appearance of the protagonist was part of the product that the producers were intending to offer the audience. Lively herself recognized that achieving a certain aesthetic was part of the job that we both excitingly signed up for. She asked Baldoni if they could do the body scenes at the end so that she'd have sufficient time to work out. She wrote to her agent that she was working out twice a day. She said, I'm sure the sexiness in this film is critical to its success. My husband and I both look at certain roles as athletic events, and this is one of them. Given these statements, Baldoni's actions, even if they could be viewed as gently pushing Lively to lose weight, which is not necessarily supported by the evidence, could not fairly be described as discrimination because of Lively's gender. So there's a lot of moments here where he does call it out. Also the dance sequence where he calls out the slow dancing and they're in their own world. Like Lively claims during filming, Baldoni leaned in and gestured as he was intending to kiss her on the forehead and caressing her. It smells good. The record indicates videos of the scene. The scene was shot in front of a large group of people. Baldoni can be heard giving blocking instructions. Both actors can be shown improvising. Other actors are in the background. There is no question that this conduct might support a hostile work environment if it occurred on a factory floor or an executive suite. But in all SH cases, the court must carefully consider the social context in which a particular behavior occurs and is experienced by its target. And in the question in whether this context, Baldoni's conduct could reasonably be understood to reflect a view about Lively as a woman rather than the role she was asked to play, under the framing, it would be difficult to view Baldoni's conduct as reflecting hostile or based on gender. He was acting in the scene. Assuming he was improvising, the conduct was not so far beyond what might reasonably be expected to take place between two characters during a slow dancing scene, such that an inference of hostile treatment on the basis of sex would arise, at least in isolation. He's calling it out. He's like, no, although these incidents could not on their own sustain hostile work environment, he's saying what Ron said all along. None of these hold out on their own. Altogether, though, they could. That's where things sort of play in. And then the meat of this and what they really speak about as he goes, he does call out that the sexiness stuff doesn't sound good. He does call out some stuff of Baldoni's sort of behavior on set that could be deemed inappropriate. but again, doesn't say it's full on, harassment. But where the real meat of this goes into is the retaliation. It goes into a lot about Melissa's firm Tag and what they did. And they really do play out a lot of those documents and text messages that came out that, Kim, they don't look good. They don't sound good. Doesn't mean they did it, right? But it doesn't sound good that we can bury anybody. Of course, this stuff is untraceable. He writes that all this really does potentially prove they were doing something they shouldn't have. Not a good part of the document for well, I guess not for Justin per se. It's not really his fault, but for Tag in itself, they're in some trouble. Would you say, Kim?
I think they have to explain some things. One of the things that I have learned following this case is how complicated behind the scenes PR is. And I think with the internet, with the way that technology has evolved, PR has evolved with it. And the thing is, they go through all of these notes, like the judge goes through all of these situations. And then towards the end of his analysis, he talks about, like, that being said, Baldoni and Wayfarer were allowed to hire crisis PR. They were allowed to boost things that they wanted to boost. They were allowed to do these things. Where is the line that they're not? And I think that is going to be the main question. And I think that the reason that this is moving forward is because it is debatable. There's points on both sides. And I don't envy this jury for having to go through it.
Yeah, I don't mean, I'm trying to find that last part because there's a lot of it, guys, and there's a lot of stuff a lot of it got thrown out via technicality, to be fair. A lot of it because of geography and things, and because she didn't sign a contract. A whole chunk of the claims are gone because Blake, the irony, Kim, right? She was not signing the contract to play power moves, but then ultimately by not signing the contract, she doesn't get to actually file the sexual harassment claims. So that totally bit her in the butt. But because she was power tripping and trying to keep things and never sign it. But what I was trying to find here, and it's coming up here. Yeah, what Kim said at the end, I think is very important. They are allowed to go. I can't find the specific. They're allowed to defend themselves.
Do you want me to look for it while you discuss?
No, I have it here.
Okay.
Now, I was looking for a specific part, as Kim was mentioning. It's important to mention this. Yeah, the judge, after doing a long part about, there was some potential retaliation, maybe enough that a jury should decide, not admitting that it happened, but there's enough for me to question based on some of these texts, untraceable, without trace, we can bury anybody. It does seem like they were doing some things that perhaps they shouldn't have done. But he also made a point to say the Wayfarer parties were entitled to engage in public relations and crisis specialists to protect their reputation. He goes into a few here and sort of says that, yeah, there was a lot. Wayfarer parties are also entitled to prepare responses to the protection letter and the accusations that it implied. That include the right to assert that the claims against them were untrue or misconstrued, and that Lively could not be credited. It also included the right to convey to the viewing public reasons why Lively's account could not be trusted, including pointing to evidence that Lively had alternative motives for making claims of harassment that she did not believe the claims were making, as in taking control of the film, etc. So this is all important stuff here that they are allowed to do. Now, he does say, they have to be careful if they were really sharing negative stories about Blake. There clearly seems to be a line. But for example, it was permissible for Baldoni to request that the digital team boost certain videos which he believed were favorable to his image. But I guess they're kind of like, if they're boosting a lot of negative Blake stories, that could be deemed, I guess, retaliation. That's really where this war is going to come into court. The sexual harassment stuff is going to come up. But at the end of the day, it's really focusing on the retaliation, and the company is behind it. Justin's now out. Justin still gets his chance to countersue Stephanie Jones, find more information there. This is a huge win for Justin personally. Costs now, Blake's not going to be able to go get them. As Ron said earlier, I think settlement talks are going to get very real, potentially, because Kim, I can't imagine Blake wanting to reopen all this again in court now that so much has been knocked out. It's possible she can win one of those. But is it enough? I think it is true what Sigrid said. She really just wants to prove it was a smear campaign that happened over the summer. But in relitigating that and going through it all everything she did wrong, all the attitude, all the tone deaf stuff, all the bullying, it's going to come to light again in a courtroom.
Yeah.
Ryan's outburst and scream, all of it is going to come out with them on the stand. Do you think it's worth it? What do you think?
You know what? I have said from the beginning of this, and I've taken a lot of heat for saying it. I did think that this case needed to settle earlier on because I think a lot of people make up their opinion and it's very hard for them to change their opinion. And there will be people with the outcome of this case. Let's say Blake wins, and the people that believe Blake and think she's going to win, they will be happy and she'll have won and they'll be yay. And then there'll be the other people that didn't believe that she was retaliated against. And they're still not going to believe that she was retaliated against after the court case, and they're going to have their opinion. But the majority of people in the world are in the team, why are these rich people still fighting? Why are we here? And I really think that that is going to hurt both sides at the end of the day. Justin has been, the SH has been cleared from him. He can move on in his life. And I think that was a big part of what this case was about for the Wayfarer parties. And Blake can say, this happened to me and the laws didn't protect me and that's why I lost, and right off into the sunset. They both can do that now. They both can just leave it and go. And honestly, I think that is the best thing for both of their reputations at this point. The longer this drags out, the longer people will remember it.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, it's a big win for Justin, but it is still a battle that he's going to have to go into with this retaliation thing. I sense the harassment, no. The harassment's dead in the water, and Blake's trying to play like that was never the case, but it clearly was, and you should be ashamed of yourself for using the Me Too law to make this about harassment. We're not going to let that fall by the wayside, Blake. She doesn't get to change the narrative now and be like, oh, it was always just about the retaliation. No, that's not what your lawsuit said.
I thought it was supposed to be about sticking up for victims of SH, but
yeah, women and girlies.
I guess,
but now it's about
not.
The Hollywood smear machines. Like, which is it, Blake? Yeah. Make up your mind. But now she's gonna watch. She's gonna twist the narrative to it was always about the retaliation and the Hollywood PR campaigns. I'd love to see Blake's publicist text messages. Kim, oh my God, can you imagine what juicy stuff's in there? But besides that, there is a shot now that Blake could still get a win here in the retaliation. It seems, based on what I'm reading here. Based on the way FEHA works, yeah, they admitted to a problem. Blake admitted there was a problem in that list of demands. Judge says it clear as day. They signed off on it. That's all it takes. And then, yeah, there were things that followed after suit. And based on what Liman's saying, based on the FEHA laws, FEHA, California law, that could prove poorly for the companies that Justin employed, or Wayfarer, potentially his company. Wayfarer, the movie, and Tag, that's who's now on the hook, not Justin specifically, but they could still be on the hook and be proven guilty in one of those cases by a jury, depending on how they play it. But now I think they're going to be able to really form a better argument and focused argument, right? A more specific case now, rather than all those, 13, 14 cases. There's only a few now that they're really focusing on. All the other stuff they've done and may come in with SH, et cetera. But the smear campaign, the retaliation, they're going to have to go deeper in it. And yeah, one last thing to mention in the recap. They did mention us, Kim. They did mention us as part of it. And honestly, the way I see it, I'm kind of proud of it because I consider myself a journalist. This to me makes me sound like a journalist. And as someone who has had documents that are on the docket that Liman read, notice I'm not in this further as some sort of problematic smear person. I'm not. I'm noted as someone who is, getting statements and et cetera, which I've never denied from both sides. I reached out. So I'm honored to be in this. I'm happy to be in it. I know firsthand there's nothing they're going to find from me. So I know this is all a idiotic fishing expedition that's going to promote nothing. So I'm excited to see what's going to happen next. I would not be surprised if they settle. At the same time, I could see the stubbornness and the egos of both sides wanting to say, you know what, screw it. Let's go all the way to court and see what happens. That said, maybe the SH claims being denied is all Justin really wanted. Yep. Maybe he doesn't want to go fight the Tag retaliation thing in court. So maybe they will find a way to just end this now and each of them cut their losses. It's possible. And then he can still go after Stephanie Jones. So we shall see. There's a lot still to come. So we will make you updated on all the updates that come in along it. Hit that subscribe button to make sure you get notified. Hit the bell for alerts. Smash that thumbs up as well, and leave a comment. All that engagement helps here. If you want to watch the full show, you head over to our website, popcornplanet.com. I'll try to make sure to remember to pin the comment here. But if you head over to popcornplanet.com, you can join, become a member today. Hit sign up, pick a level. All levels will get you into the exclusive content part, or the newsfeed, where we'll be posting our members only full 3-hour plus reading of the doc. If you want to watch it in the background, definitely check it out. Stay tuned. Also, signing up there is the best way to help, along with our link tree, which is always in all the websites. You can support Kim and I. Literally, this documentary is costing so much and all these changes, but I'm so glad we waited. But if you want to support the doc or the litigation fund, all the links are here. Signing up is the best way. Also, Kim is on there as well. Support us if you can. Thanks to everybody who's been watching all 3 hours and all through all of it. It's a lot to go through, but grateful we're finally getting some insights, some deadlines, some information. A lot more is coming, so stay tuned here on Popcorn Planet.